So first off, apologies if there is a lot of background noise coming in. This is a particularly loud part of the evening for my neighborhood, but I wanted to get this video out, so hopefully it's not too much. Anyway, catching up on the VCT Americas games after I got back from a couple of events I was traveling around the world for. Humble brag. But once I got home, catching up on these games, I was really excited to see the Loud versus NRG match. I was excited to see how they utilize Sadak's Chamber on Bind, because as we all know, Chamber is not a meta agent anymore. You'll see him get thrown into the mix every once in a while, but usually it's not cheese necessarily, but very much a off meta pick. But I really liked how this was an inventive way to utilize this agent on what is also not a new map, but being a new returning map back into the map pool. The match versus NRG was not the first time they used this agent. They did premiere it, they did debut it against EG, but that particular matchup wasn't a good example of how this agent is strong, because they started off on the attacking side. It's the defense where Chamber really shows its value, and the attacking side was so strong for Loud that they didn't need that many defensive rounds. But you did see one round with Chamber in the key position on defense, the very final round of that matchup, and that's going to be, of course, in Showers. Now, Showers isn't the only part of the map. It's not even the only part of the A site where Chamber is useful, but it is the most iconic one. So the key part, if you're not aware, the key part of Chamber's kit is, of course, the teleportation. It gives a movement option similar to Jet's dash, but obviously it's different, right? Because you set it in a singular position, and as long as you're in the range, you go back to that set spot. But because it's a set spot, you want it to be behind cover, because it's not going to be quite as modular. You don't have a choice on where you dodge depending on what's coming at you. It's going to be a set position. But that's why the winding halls around Showers or on U-halls, and then of course you even see examples used in the little cubby behind Triple Box, below Heaven. All of these are going to be on A. Those winding halls allow for the teleport to be put in a place of safety, and then just peek out on the other side of the maze, the windingness, down into, this is also the crucial part, down into a long-ish sight line. You got the winding halls of Showers looking down into the attacking side past the teleporter. You got the winding halls of U-Hall looking down short A, and then you even have, it's not winding halls, but you got the sort of cubby, as I mentioned, behind Triple below Heaven, looking through the site, as open as the A site is, onto either Showers or short A teleport entrance. So being able to hold these sight lines and then throwing your trademark into the mix to get extra information on one of the other choke points that you perhaps don't have all your full attention on, and that, already you can see how this agent can be utilized essentially as a one-man army on a single site. That's not to say that Loud put Sadak on A by himself routinely. In fact, they routinely have other members of their team on A. Oftentimes you even see two other members on A. The value of the Chamber, though, is the flexibility that it allows the other members. So they can rotate quickly if there is some piece of information on B. They also can find a new spot each and every time to mix it up and catch the opponents off guard without compromising the integrity of their A hold. And of course, sometimes they throw the Chamber on B. You always got to mix things up in Valorant. You can't just run the same composition over and over again, or rather, you can't just run the same setup over and over again, whether you're on attack or defense. But generally, there is going to be the sort of core setup for an agent composition, a core setup for any agent's utilization on a map. Now that's Chamber on the defense. Is Chamber used? Okay, I'm not gonna fucking, what's with this rhetorical question bullshit. Chamber is also useful on attack. Not quite as useful on the attack as he is on the defense, but on the attacking side, obviously, you have the same sort of pick and move options to hold flanks from the opposing defense. You see a couple of examples, again, outside Showers from this match, but you also see a few times Sadak be the one pushing forward, trying to find the opening pick. Not exactly an entry, because the movement option goes back, but it is definitely peek for a pick, go back to safety. And admittedly, in this particular match, that move hasn't been, or rather, it wasn't a particularly successful one, but it was still, I think, a really good way to throw Chamber into the mix more than just be a sort of background turret, and finding an opening for the rest of the team to capitalize on, or at the very least find some information. And then of course, when you get the site, when you get the spike plant down, suddenly you're back on defensive mode, and Chamber is powerful again. Big question is, though, why pick Chamber over any other agent? The meta so far on Bind in Americas, at least, is the same composition, but rather than Chamber, you either tend to have a Jet for a double duelist to go along with the Raze, or you have a Sage, and Chamber is understandably somewhere in the middle of that. Not quite so binarily defensive, here's a big wall to block off a part of the map and to get the plant down that Sage does, but not quite so aggressive in your face. I need to find an entry, I need to find an entry, I need to find an entry that Jet gives. Chamber is somewhere in the middle, but I think the key distinction, or rather the key note to make, is if a team should utilize this pick in that flex position or not, is who are the star players on their roster. Loud have the luxury of not having their flex player, not having Sadok be their star player. It's Les and Aspas that are the main fraggers on this team. And so even if this composition does get figured out and a team can either avoid the Chamber or put so many resources into nullifying that Chamber position, that's not going to matter because that's not even the player that you really want to be shutting down. Like, I wouldn't recommend EG take, well, the Demon 1 EG, the regional EG, not the Tokyo EG, but I wouldn't recommend the Demon 1 EG to utilize this composition because we all know Demon 1 is too good on the Jet, and you would, I mean, you might be able to reconfigure your set pieces, your positions to try and throw the Chamber in, but then you'd put the Jet 1 on the Raze, and yeah, that's just not worth it for that specific team, but for Loud, it very much is worth it. If you're a team that doesn't need your sniper player to go supernova to win, it could be something to look at. But I would be surprised if it caught on en masse. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Loud using Chamber on Bind. It's always really exciting to see adaptations, adjustments, off-meta picks when you compare to the same old mirror matchups. I think it's a lot more exciting, and it shows the uniqueness and beauty of Valorant more than these set mirror matchups. So, granted, you don't want to just, like, force an off-meta pick just to force it because that's getting close to kind of throwing. And as we all know, being unique isn't like you're not better just by being unique. There's got to have some thought into it. But, you know, as we've studied here, there's certainly thought and design principles behind Loud throwing in Chamber on Bind. Well, that's the video for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I don't have an outro, so